paragraphs appeared in the Dutch version, if Omid Scobie, the author, insists, as he has done, that he had nothing to do with it, never put these names in writing, never supplied a draft with those names?
I don't know.
First of all, I want to say, after your track record, Piers, it would be very unimpressed if you didn't mention these names. So well done, because you're the first one, I think, on TV that's doing that.
To be honest with you, I don't understand why journalists wouldn't. I haven't understood why we haven't so far, because the moment a book is published and available to people on the streets of another country containing these names, I don't even know if these are the two names of the two people that Meghan Markle originally with Harry claimed made these comments. We don't know. But we do know they've appeared in the book, a version of the book, and it's Omid Scobie's book, and we do know that under oath Meghan Markle admitted that she conspired in his last book as one of his sources. So let's wait and see how this plays out. But again, just to come back, what do Dutch people in the media think has happened here?
Good question.
Well, I don't think Dutch people really care about it, but because it's the U.S. royal family in this case that is involved, not even the British royal family actually, because people don't believe it, I think. But on the other hand, how did it end up in the book? I think it is in the way Omid is describing it. It was not in the manuscript. What is the manuscript? Is it the final version that you hand in at your publisher? In that case, it was in an earlier version, and it got erased in all the other versions all over the world, except for that tiny little country, the Netherlands, that has been overlooked. Maybe someone overlooked the Netherlands to send us a memo, the publisher, or maybe the publisher forgot to do it. I don't know.
Well, it's very mysterious. Let me go to another seasoned author, Tom Bauer. You've written many books. Have you ever known a situation, Tom, where a version of your book has appeared in a foreign version containing paragraphs you knew nothing about that contain bombshell revelations?
It's impossible. What? And also, more to the point, he also complained that the French translations were wrong too. I mean, the problem with Scobie is everyone is getting it wrong what he wrote. But of course, he can't probably remember what he wrote himself because it's so full of fabrications.
Well, I'm not saying he's lying about having no involvement in this. I'm just saying generally he's a terrible liar.
He's a terrible liar. We know that from his own statement about the briefing from Jason Knauf, which Meghan gave him. We know he's a liar. And I think he's fabricated a lot in his book. And he lied when he said he didn't have Meghan's help in this book. Clearly, he was briefed by Meghan's people from California.
He says they share mutual friends, right? But those friends would not be allowed to cooperate with him without permission.
Exactly. It's exactly as before. This is all. His book, again, is Meghan's voice. Why is she decided to launch another war, a battle against the royal family? That's for her to explain. But she hasn't dissociated herself from
Have you ever thought that there was any racial intent from any comments made?
No. I mean, the whole... this is actually explained in my Meghan book very clearly. It was a very, very early on in Harry's relationship with Meghan. He goes for tea to Clarence's house. He's sitting there with King Charles, Prince Charles then, and Camilla. And they eventually discover who he's dating and all the rest of it. And Camilla, very as a joke, just says, I wonder what your baby will look like. Will he or she have ginger hair? It's just the normal. And when that originally came out, it had nothing to do with racism, as Harry himself admits. It was all to do with the perennial problem. What will your baby look like if it comes from different parents?
I just thought it was incredibly disingenuous of Harry, after 2 years of feverish racism slurs.
The thing about Harry,
he then said, well, we never meant to infer racism.
No, but the whole point is in the Opera interview that he comes onto the programme after Meghan has spoken and says, no, she's wrong. It all happened long before she was pregnant. It happened right at the beginning of our relationship. It was just a normal tea conversation.
Nearly 2 years before.
Exactly. And so Meghan had lied. I mean, there were 17 lies she uttered in the Opera interview. That was one of her lies. And that is the problem. He's now hoist by it. But the real problem is he's caused enormous damage. And Scobie...
Huge damage.
And Scobie, to get some money and all the rest, stirs it again and again and again. But this time, yet again, is definitely with Meghan's approval.
OK, Roy, look, you didn't know I was going to do the naming of these two people. I don't want to get you involved in that directly. You're a royal correspondent. But on the wider picture, this book is getting more and more attention. It's now front page news of many papers. It clearly has a lot of damaging revelations. It follows a familiar pattern from his first book. All the main royals are awful. Duke and Duchess of Sussex are angelic, and weren't they treated so badly? How significant is this book? Is it going to actually have any real effect, do you think?
Well, it's interesting you say it's full of damaging revelations and bombshells, because actually from what I have read so far, it's just full of Omid's own highly partisan views and opinions, rather than fact-based, damaging bombshell allegations that I think a lot of people thought were going to be unveiled with real, proper evidence behind them. And I have to say, I've been asked about the book a lot this week, and it's just felt quite predictable. And of course, it was always going to get lots of traction because it's Omid, it's the royals. But it just feels, once again, like Finding Freedom, a very one-sided, partisan. The rest of the royal family are awful. Harry and Meghan smell of roses. And I think actually the British public and a lot of the wider public are able to sort of decide for themselves which camp they're in, how much they believe, how much they don't. I mean, you've talked about already this week the things that Omid has said about you that aren't true.
Yeah.
He's really not a fan of the Sunday Times coverage I've read, and he had a whinge and a moan about my William interview knocking off Trooping the Colour from the front page. We never put Trooping the Colour on the front page, and so on and so forth. So I think, is it going to be hugely damaging? I think it'll whip up a storm, predictably, to get publicity, and I feel that possibly something around these names could be to do with publicity. But I don't think it's going to have real lasting damage, because I don't think people are going to believe all his opinions.
Right, and they shouldn't, by the way, from my experience. But in terms of, I guess, the family relationships here, particularly Harry and his father, we were reading signs of potential rapprochement. Would they come to Sandringham? I got to say, I think I've got more chance of being at Sandringham than Meghan Markle pulling
my story. They'd like
festive
to.
crackers.
They'd like to.
Yeah.
They'd like to.
Yeah. What's your story? Yeah. But none of this is going to help, because there is this belief, which may or may not be true in the case of this book. I don't know, right? But we know in the first book, Meghan Markle said she had nothing to do with it, and then under oath had to admit she did. If it turns out the same has happened here, and she's authorised friends to help him and give him stuff, because let's face it, this exchange of letters between Charles and Meghan Markle, only one of them can have told people about that. And Charles is not the kind of guy that's going to be telling people about a letter like that, which makes me think it's her and her friends, or somebody has gone to Scobie. We'll wait and see. But if that is the case, this is going to be very damaging to the ongoing trust issues between Charles and Harry.
Well, trust is the key issue, and I think that was something I touched on in that piece about them saying we wouldn't decline an invitation to spend time with the family. The problem is, as you just rightly said, imagine what a whole Christmas at Sandringham would produce in terms of potential future content. And I think looking at, the phone call between Charles and Harry and Meghan around Charles' 75th birthday, it was briefed before it happened, and it was briefed after. And I think if you can't even have a private phone conversation that isn't briefed before or after...
I honestly wouldn't trust, if that was someone in my family, after what they've done, repeatedly, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
Trust is the issue, and that's not changing anytime soon.
Let's go to Kahindi Andrews, be waiting patiently here. Kahindi, we've talked a lot about race issues over the years, but specifically here, there is no doubt that when they went on Oprah Winfrey 2 years ago, they made a series of allegations directly inferring racism by senior members of the royal family, which they've never produced evidence for, and which 2 years later Harry said, oh, we didn't mean racism, we meant unconscious bias and so on. Do you not feel that that is incredibly damaging to people like you who constantly fight battles for racial equality, racial justice, try and fight proper battles about this? Is it not incredibly damaging for that when someone of their profile tries to pretend what they said to Oprah Winfrey was not what it was?
I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, I think the allegations, when they came out, we all kind of believed it. It wasn't something that seems completely outrageous. Also, I'm not sure what evidence you could have. And actually, if you listen to the clips, they're clearly trying not to say the names because they know the names are going to cause this massive storm. But I think the bigger problem with the whole way this has been portrayed is Oprah's shocked, everybody's shocked. No black person I know was shocked that this came up in a conversation in the royal family. And the bigger problem here really is that actually it isn't about racist royals. It's about the royal family is racism. It is a symbol of white supremacy. That's the bigger problem.
Well, because
the way we
white.
talk about this now is completely
because
ludicrous.
they're white.
No, not because they're white, but because they're white, because they are almost exclusively white.
Where is the evidence of them being white supremacists?
The link back to colonialism. Why do we even... The idea that a country like Britain, which is incredibly diverse, an empire which was more diverse, is led by this almost exclusively white family into the 21st century. I'm sorry, that is
so you're judging them by their skin
colour. That's
colour.
the issue of racism.
So you're, just to be clear, you're judging them by their skin colour, not the content of their characters.
No. I'm saying their skin colour is not an accident. It is not an accident that Meghan Markle
they're
is the
white.
first black person to
They
go
can't
into
help
the
being
family.
white.
It is not an accident that she's run out of the family.
Kahindi, they're white, you're black, I'm white. We can't help our skin colour.
It's not about their skin colour, it's about what it represents. The idea that King Charles is the king of... My family's from Jamaica, which is 90% black people, and the king of the head of state of Jamaica is the King Charles. It's ludicrous. That is a ludicrous thing in the 21st century. But that is what I'm saying, symbol of white supremacy.
Well, you're going to have a vote.
I couldn't care less if it was Kate.
Listen, countries like Jamaica will have votes and they can decide...
It's not about having a vote, it's about the...
No, but the point is you can... There are countries choosing... There are countries like Jamaica choosing whether they want to go independent. That's absolutely a democratic right. You don't have to have our monarch as the head of state.
The fact that's a choice... The fact that's a choice in the 21st century tells you there's a big problem.
But do you think anyone then... So anyone in the royal family... Just to be clear, anyone in the royal family, as far as you're concerned, is a white supremacist simply because they're white and they're part of a royal family.
What I'm saying is the royal family, like the police or like universities where I work, they are institutions of white supremacy. It's not about the individuals. It's about what they do. It's about their role in the world. That's the real case. The royal family should be gone. It should be abolished. It shouldn't exist if we're talking about anti-racism. I really couldn't care less which royal said what, because that actually distracts.
What if they didn't say it at all?
Why on earth would we accept
What
this?
if they didn't say it at all, but the whole world has been led for 2-3 years to believe that they did? What about that scenario?
Like I said, this doesn't, like for me, it really doesn't matter whether they said it or not.
Because you think they're all racist anyway, right?
It's not about individual people. So it's not they are all racist. They are in an institution which is racism, which is one of these primary symbols of racism.
You know, sometimes, Kahindi...
I think it is a bit surprising that Kate...
I'm going to say, sometimes, you know, when your default position, which it always is, by the way, is that everyone's a white supremacist if they've got white skin colour until they can prove otherwise. It is your default position. And it is your default position.
Piers, you know it's not what I said.
That's always been your default position.
I said that the institution...
White people in any position of authority, power, anything, they're all white supremacists according to you. It does beg the question, why do you want to live in a country like this if they're all white supremacists?
Like
really, nigga?
Well, I could go home back to Jamaica.
No,
but I don't care. The head of state is the king.
You can go,
it's the same problem. I can't even get away from it.
You can go where the hell you like. I'm just saying, why, honestly, why stay in a country you believe is led in every pillar of the establishment and society by white supremacists? Makes no sense to me.
Because the reality is that that's the world. I didn't choose the world. That is the world that I inhabit. And I would stress, I'm not saying that all white people are white supremacists. I actually think when we think about racism as individual racist, it's the worst way to think about it. Think about the systems, think about the institutions. And the royal family is exclusively white for a reason. It is the head of the so-called Commonwealth British Empire for a reason. It is a direct connection to the colonial history that this country loves so much. It is the premier symbol of white supremacy.
You know what? It's actually not exclusively white.
These comments.
It's not exclusively white because the Duchess
almost
of Sussex...
Exclusively. I said
the
almost
Duchess of Sussex is not white.
I said almost exclusively.
What she did do was she entered the royal
exception
family.
That proves the rule.
She launched a grenade of racism allegations and has ever since stayed silent about those.
She barely did anything.
And let them run riot around the world.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, that to me...
She came into the royal family and her blackness was so much of an affront that everybody lost their minds.
That, in a way, is a form of racism, actually, in my view, what she's done. But we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out now, because I've decided to name
Piers,
the two people named in the Holland version of this book. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see whether Meghan Markle and Harry were involved with Scobie's book. Let's see what Scobie and his involvement in this offending paragraph and naming was. Let's just see how this all plays out. And let's give the members of the royal family that they besmirched collectively, let's give them the chance to properly respond. Because I don't believe a word of it. Anyway, Kahindi, it's always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Tom, good to see you. Roy, thank you very much indeed. Well, Sasha, Walpole joins me now.
Hi.
A week ago, I'd never heard of you.
No, I know.
Nor anybody else apart from your family and friends. And now you're like this globally known person, and actually, through no fault of your own or desire to be publicly known at all.
No, I know. It's been a bit of a whirlwind week, and hopefully it's a means to an end, and I can get back to normality, go back to work, drive my digger, hide back under my rock.
How do you feel about the way this has all exploded in your life?
Very surreal. Still doesn't seem real. Don't know, kind of shocked, really. I didn't think that it would hit the headlines like it did. I mean, there's a lot of worse stuff going on in the world right now that probably needs more of a focus. Obviously, we had the earthquake and a few other things going on, the war in Ukraine. But yeah, I never thought it would happen like it has.
I mean, it's been a fascinating thing to watch unfurl because I used to run national newspapers, so I knew exactly what would happen. The moment Harry put in this book the details of how he lost his virginity to an older woman in a field behind the back of a pub, I just thought, well, I know what's happening now. Every single news desk in Fleet Street and every TV network, they're all sending people off to try and find this poor woman who has probably never said a word about this and now is going to be on the front page of papers from here to America to China to Timbuktu.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I had a bit of a run-in with the paparazzi back in 2001, so I kind of knew how it can turn out. And at first I was a bit like, no, just hide, it'll be fine, it'll go away, like I have done, in the past. And then suddenly you realise that it's getting closer, your world's getting smaller, a lot more people are talking about it. Friends from back home are getting questioned, accused, and I was just like, do you know what? The way to stop it is just come forward and say it's me, and then hopefully, sooner it's come out, it will go, and I can carry on with my little life.
When was the first moment that you knew that you were in this book?
When my friend sent me a screenshot of a comment via WhatsApp, and I was just sat on my sofa watching telly, and yeah, I kind of didn't quite know what to do about it.
Were you shocked? Were you?
I was,
a bit scared about what may happen to you? Or?
Disbelief. He went into so much detail because then it's obvious who it was. So for me, that was like a huge thing because then suddenly I was like, oh no, everyone's going to know. And then, next day all the messages started.
I'm trying to imagine what it must be like when we played the clip of Harry. I don't know if we can play it again, but we played the clip of Harry talking about this. I just want to sort of look at you as you listen to this because I'm trying to imagine what it must be like to have been you when he came out with this, not just in written word, but also in spoken word. This is a guy who's sixth in line or fifth in line to the throne of this country, talking about losing his virginity to you. Yeah. Sacha Walpole, let's take a listen.
I suspected he was referring to my recent loss of virginity, inglorious episode with an older woman. She liked horses quite a lot and treated me not unlike a young stallion. Quick ride, after which she'd smack my rump and sent me off to graze. Among the many things about it that were wrong, it happened in a grassy field behind a busy pub.
What did you feel when you heard this?
I don't really know. I can see the humour side of the horse because obviously...
You were a groom at the time,
I was a groom. Well, not at the time, but I was a groom. I'd left Highgrove by the time this had happened.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, I could see the funny side to it. We were two friends, and for me, I still see him as Harry. I still see him as a friend that I used to hang out with down the pub, go and watch the polo with, and yeah, it was just...
We're seeing pictures of you both there with some other friends clowning around and stuff. I mean, I suppose that my response to it when I first heard about this was, I thought it was breathtaking, I've got to be honest, breathtakingly hypocritical of someone who goes on and on about privacy to then reveal such a private thing, but not just about himself, but to inevitably spark the trail of interest that would lead to your door without even having the good grace to let you know he was doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to live a private life and you want to get out of the limelight and leave the royal family or whatever to live your life as you want to live it, to then sell a book and go on Netflix is kind of going against what you're saying you want. But yeah, I just have
nobody. He didn't call you, or nobody contacted you to say you're in the book.
No.
The first you knew was a friend WhatsApping you.
Yeah.
To say, well, this is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you like, oh my God.
I was, yeah, well, I think I probably used a little bit stronger language. I almost fell off my sofa. But yeah, it was just, you know, and then obviously all the jokes come in about, oh, young stallion and the older lady. And
I mean, some of the language he used there I thought was actually quite disrespectful. It was kind of like, it was all wrong. You were an older woman, treating him like a stallion. It was all...
Yeah, I think it's just the way that it's written. You know, the thing wrong about it, we were two friends. It should never have happened. We crossed the line. It was never intentional. There was nothing before, nothing after. I mean, Inglorious, it's not really that glorious sleeping with someone in a field behind a pub when you're drunk.
I don't know.
Well, you know.
Have your moments?
Yeah, sometimes.
Would you agree it was inglorious then? Or?
You know, there is nothing glorious about being drunk and then copping off with one of your mates in a field.
I don't know, actually, Sasha. No. I did that loads of times when I was young. Always felt pretty glorious in the moment. It was the next morning was the problem.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we all felt.
Let's go back. I want to go back to where it all started, because it's kind of fascinating that you've been a groom at Highgrove, like you said. But you frequented this local pub. So there were two pubs in the area. So tell me about the two pubs. Yeah,
I mean, we used to drink at the Rattlebone quite a lot, which is obviously mentioned quite a lot. And then we used to go to the Vine Tree, and there was another one, the Cat and Custard.
The Vine Tree was the crime scene.
Yep, that's where the crime took place. Yep.
But you would go in these pubs, and it was perfectly normal that Harry and William, in fact, who was in the pub actually on the night in question, but they would both come down as young princes, and they'd hang out with you guys. Yeah,
I mean, I don't even think... It's like I said before, it was just a group of friends. So it didn't matter if you were a prince, a rider, a groom, a polo player. We were just like, we had horses in common and we just hung out.
Any other royals go in there?
Not really. I think Zara may have popped in once or twice, but it was just mainly William and Harry. That was their local.
No sign of Uncle Andrew?
No sign of Uncle Andrew.
Just as well, probably.
Yep.
So the atmosphere was very relaxed, even though they were royals and you were the royal groom or had been, and the others were just local. It didn't really matter what class you were from, what part of society. They didn't care, no one cared.
No, at the end of the day, you can't be a polo player without a groom. Because if you haven't got someone doing your horses, you can't play polo.
Right.
And it's the same
pubs, I grew up in a pub. Pubs are pretty, egalitarian places. Like anything goes, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're rich, you're poor, you're this, you're that. It doesn't matter. Everyone just mixes in a pub.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, I generally look back on my years of teenage and young adulthood of fond memories. I really do. Yeah, good fun, a laugh. Luckily it was before any social media and, camera phones.
Well, now it wouldn't happen probably because there'd be too many phones out.
Yeah.
The royals would, sad for them, but, you wouldn't better go to a local pub like that probably.
No, and it is, you think he probably did have one of the better times growing up because he isn't growing up with social media. He isn't growing up with a camera phone in his face.
What was he like then? As I said, he was 16, so what was he like?
He was lovely. He was, fun, sparky. He was just one of the boys. He was, he was a lad. He was good fun to be around.
Yeah, I mean, he was 16, which was just been a few years after, obviously, his mother died in this terrible tragedy. Had you known him in the aftermath of that?
No, I didn't. I didn't get to know him sort of until a bit later on from that. And to be fair, he never ever sort of spoke about it. We just kept it light-hearted. We were just mates. We just talked about polo, horses, going to the pub.
And you become sort of quite good friends. What, he would ring up your home?
Yeah.
And he'd text you and stuff?
Yeah, generally.
Sometimes you ring the landline and your mum would answer the phone. What did he call himself?
Just Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harry, and then we'd have a chat and then probably arrange to meet up somewhere, go and watch the polo or see what everyone else was doing, see what the plan was.
When you make it sound perfectly normal, but how did your mum feel that Prince Harry was ringing her daughter?
I don't know. I think because they knew that we all hung out in a group and it wasn't really a big thing back home. I think the first time we did it, she was a bit like, oh, is that Harry? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, how funny. And that was about it, really. I mean...